Hey Krishna, everyone. Welcome to our morning Bhagavatam session. So I'll start with a Jai Radha Madhava. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Giri Varadhari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Giri Varadhari Yashodanandana Vrajjana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yashodanandana Vrajjana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Giri Varadhari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Giri Varadhari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Giri Varadhari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naran Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nashta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhavate Uttama Shloker Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtaki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Namo Pankajanabhaya Namo Pankajamaline Namo Pankajanetraya Namaste Pankajangre Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna everyone, welcome to our morning Bhagavatam session. So before I start, I seek blessings from all the assembled Vaishnavas so that I can speak in Krishna consciousness for the pleasure of Krishna and glorify Krishna as he desires. So I seek blessings from you all and we'll get started. So we are in first canto, third chapter and 44th verse. So I'll start the verse. Tatra kirtayo vipra viprasher bhuri tejasaha aham chadhyagamam tatra nivishtas tat anugrahat so aham shravashyami yathadhitam tata yathamatihi yatra kirtayo vipra viprarshir aham chadhyagamam tatra nivishtastad anugrahat so aham vaha sravashyami yatatitam yathadhitam yatamatihi. So anyone else want to read? Mataji's or Prabhuji's?
Tatra kirtayato viprarshir bhuri tejasaha aham chadyagamam tatra nivistastad anugrahat soham va shravayishyami yatadhitam yatamati.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Tatra kirtayato viprarshir tejasaha aham chadyayagamam tatra nivisistastadanugrahat soham sravaishyami yataditam yatamati.
Thank you, Mataji. Anyone else? Okay, I'll go to synonyms. Tatra, there. Kirtayaha, while reciting. Vipraha, O Brahmanas. Viprashreha, from the great Brahmana Rishi. Bhuri, greatly. Tejasaha, powerful. Aham, I. Cha, also. Adhyagamam, could understand. Tatra, in that meeting. Nivistaha, being perfectly attentive. Tat anugrahat, by his mercy. Saha, that very thing. Aham, I. Vaha, unto you. Sarvasya, Shravayishyami, shall let you hear. Yatha adhitam yatha matihi, as far as my realization. Translation. O learned Brahmanas, when Sukadeva Goswami recited Bhagavatam there, in the presence of Emperor Parikshit, I heard him with rapt attention. And thus, by his mercy, I learned the Bhagavatam from that great and powerful sage. Now I shall try to make you hear the very same thing as I learned it from him and as I have realized it. Purport. What one can certainly see directly the presence of Lord Krishna in the pages of Bhagavatam if one has heard it from a self-realized great soul like Sukadeva Goswami. One cannot, however, learn Bhagavatam from a bogus hired reciter whose aim of life is to earn some money out of such recitation and employ the earning in sex indulgence. No one can learn Srimad Bhagavatam who is associated with persons engaged in sex life. That is the secret of Srimad learning Bhagavatam. Nor can one learn Bhagavatam from one who interprets the text by his mundane scholarship. One has to learn Bhagavatam from the representative of Sukadeva Goswami and no one else. If one at all wants to see Lord Krishna in the pages, that is a process and there is no alternative. Suta Goswami is a bona fide representative of Sukadeva Goswami because he wants to present the message which he received from the great learned Brahmana. Sukadeva Goswami presented Bhagavatam as he heard it from his great father, and also Suta Goswami is presenting Bhagavatam as he heard it from Sukadeva Goswami. Simply hearing is not at all. One must realize the text with proper attention. The word Nivishta means that Suta Goswami drank the juice of Bhagavatam through his ears. That is the real process of receiving Bhagavatam. One should hear with rapt attention from the real person, and then he can at once realize the presence of Lord Krishna in every page. The secret of knowing Bhagavatam is mentioned here. No one can give rapt attention who is not pure in mind. No one can be pure in mind who is not pure in action. No one can be pure in action who is not pure in eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating. But somehow or other, if one hears with rapt attention from the right person at the very beginning, one can assuredly see Lord Krishna in the page, in the person. Shall I repeat again? But somehow or other, if someone hears with rapt attention from the right person, at the very beginning, one can assuredly see Lord Krishna in person in the pages of Bhagavatam. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of first canto, third chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Krishna is the source of all incarnations. Hare Krishna, such a wonderful purport. So in this verse number 34, so this is a concluding verse on in this chapter 34. So here, Suta Goswami, he says he has heard it from Sukadeva Goswami. How? He heard it with rapt attention. And by his mercy, by the mercy of Sukadeva Goswami, was able to comprehend, understand, assimilate. And now he's ready to share the message of Bhagavatam to the sages of Naimisharanya. So Prabhupada starts this verse with a striking statement here. So no one can directly see the presence of Krishna in the Bhagavatam. One has to hear from a self-realized soul like Sukadeva Goswami. Prabhupada also says one has to hear from the bona fide representative of Sukadeva Goswami, not from anyone else. Not just that, one has to hear from a bona fide representative of Sukadeva Goswami, but and also with rapt attention, with proper attention. Nivishtaha. This Bhagavatam has to be heard through ears, just like drinking nectar. This Bhagavatam is like a nectar that has to be drunk through the ears. And that is the real process of receiving Bhagavatam. If one hears Bhagavatam with rapt attention, with purity in mind, purity in consciousness, purity in existence, we can see Lord Krishna, the presence of Lord Krishna in every page of Bhagavatam as we hear. So we'll go into the such a nectarian purport by Srila Prabhupada. We'll go into little deeper into these topics. So as I highlighted here, like every word of Srila Prabhupada is so amazing, so nectarian. So I can't highlight. I think I highlighted as much as I could. So we'll go into little deeper into these topics. So today I'll try to speak about the context, how this verse was spoken by Suta Goswami, and the qualifications of speaker, qualifications of a listener, and how to hear with rapt attention, the stages of hearing, and importance of hearing Bhagavatam, and transformation through hearing. So context here, here Suta Goswami is speaking this verse to the sages of Naimisharanya. So the sages of Naimisharanya, they have assembled throughout towards the end of Kali Yuga. They have assembled, and they were performing 1,000-year fire sacrifice. And at that time, Suta Goswami appears there. He visits there, and he was present there. And the sages of Naimisharanya, they offered the Vyasasana to him, like this. You can see in the picture, Vyasasana, and they inquire all the sages of Naimisharanya, headed by Shonaka Muni, the person who is sitting there. So they're very much concerned about the Kali Yuga, people of Kali Yuga, the living in Kali Yuga. It's so terrible. Life is hard in the Kali Yuga. So for the welfare and well-being of all the living beings in this age of Kali, they inquired from Suta Goswami, offering him a Vyasasana. And they put forward 6 questions. And Suta Goswami answers those 6 questions from 126 to 1343. And in this verse, he's ready to speak Bhagavatam now. And before speaking that, he says, I heard this message from Sukadeva Goswami attentively, with rapt attention, and by his mercy, I was able to learn Bhagavatam, and now I shall impart the same Bhagavatam to you all, and that is the ultimate benefit for people in this age of Kali. And just by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, one can purify their consciousness and purify their existence and develop love towards the God, Supreme Personality of Godhead, and attain the Supreme Personality of Godhead just by hearing, drinking the nectar of Srimad Bhagavatam through the ears of a Mahabhagavata. So we'll see about Suta Goswami. Who is Suta Goswami? Suta Goswami is the son of Romaharshana Suta. So his name is Ugrashrava Suta Goswami. Romaharshana is the son of Romaharshana Suta. And about Romaharshana Suta, he's a disciple of Vyasadeva, Vyasa. And Romaharshana, he's himself a great speaker. The way he used to speak, he puts everyone in ecstasy. He's well versed in Vedic literatures and can nicely speak Bhagavatam and put everyone in ecstasy. But he has a problem. So one Lord Balrama has to chastise him, and because when Lord Balram visited the place when Romaharshana Suta was narrating the Krishna Kada. So he was speaking about Krishna, but he didn't pay attention to Krishna. He didn't offer obeisances to the Balramji who was present there. So he was speaking about the Lord, but he was not paying attention or offering obeisances to the Lord when the Lord himself was present, when Balramji was present. So Balramji has to chastise him. He uses a blade of grass and also chastises him and kills him. And after that, he installs Suta Goswami, and Suta Goswami becomes a speaker. And he also, similar to his father, he's also an amazing speaker of Srimad Bhagavatam. And by his wonderful speech, he can put everyone in ecstasy. That is about the Suta Goswami. So qualifications of Suta Goswami. So that is been described by sages of Naimisharanya in the Bhagavatam itself. So sages of Naimisharanya, before they inquire, before they put forward 6 questions, they glorify Suta Goswami. So these are the 5 qualifications, 5 important qualifications by which they glorify. Those are like Anaga. Oh, my dear Suta Goswami, you are Anaga, you are free from all vices. So what are vices? Vices are like eatings, intoxication, meat eating, gambling, illicit sex, all those vices. And anardas, kama, krodha, lobha, moha. So Suta Goswami is free from all vices. He's completely pure. His mind consciousness is pure. And he's also Akyanthani Adhithani. He's very well versed in scriptures, Puranas, and histories, and also well versed in preaching. He also can preach. He also has a very good, wonderful preaching experience. And he has recited the Krishna Kada to many times in the past. Veda Vidham Shreshto. So they say, you are the senior most among the scholar of Vedas. You are well versed in Vedas, and you are also a scholar in the Vedas. And you are Saumya. So one has to have this wonderful quality, Saumya, pure. Heart has to be pure and simple. Snigdaha and submissive. So Suta Goswami was very, very submissive to Vedavyasa, and he has heard, and all the favors were endowed to Suta Goswami by Vyasadeva himself, and he was able to hear through the disciplic succession and ready to share Srimad Bhagavatam to the sages of Naimisharanya. So these are the qualities one should have when one hears. If one has to hear from a bona fide representative, one has to have all these wonderful qualities. That is the qualifications of a bona fide representative of Krishna, or the speaker of Bhagavatam. And here Prabhupada says, one has to hear Bhagavatam from the representative of Sukadeva Goswami and no one else, if one at all wants to see Lord Krishna in every pages, in all the pages of Bhagavatam. So here we can see Suta Goswami is a bona fide representative of Sukadeva Goswami, because he himself is saying in this verse today that he has heard from Sukadeva Goswami as it is, and he is ready to present to the same sages of Naimisharanya as it is, how he has heard, without any mental concoction or mental interpretation. So here Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita 4:2, Evam parampara praptam imam raja rishaho viduhu. The transcendental message I have given, and this has been transmitting through the Guru Parampara. So we can see here in this case, Lord Krishna has imparted this transcendental message to Lord Brahma and to Narada, Brahma to Narada, Narada to Vyasadeva, Vyasadeva to Sukadeva Goswami, and Sukadeva Goswami to Suta Goswami. Suta Goswami has heard from Sukadeva Goswami the same message as it is, with rapt attention. So the speaker, if he has to speak, so he has to be well versed, and he has to have the qualifications, good qualifications, and those are also we'll see few more qualifications. Before we saw about the qualifications of Suta Goswami, but in general, of Suta Goswami himself speaks about a speaker of Bhagavatam, the qualifications of a speaker of Bhagavatam, that is described in Bhagavat Mahatmya in Skanda Purana. Bhagavan matihi anapekshaha suhrido dineshu sanukampoyaha yaha bahudha bhodhan chaturaha bhakta sammanitaho manubihi. So one has to be Bhagavan matihi. The speaker of Bhagavatam has to be Bhagavan matihi. That means like mind always fixed in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. His mind should be always fixed in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not on money, not on sense gratification. And anapekshaha, he should speak in a way without expecting anything, without desiring anything in return. And he should rejoice in speaking Bhagavatam. So that is a wonderful quality of a speaker of Bhagavatam. He should, first of all, he should rejoice in speaking Bhagavatam, and he can put everyone in ecstasy. And Prabhupada also says in the part, but today one cannot, however, learn Bhagavatam from a bogus hired reciter whose aim of life is to earn money. So it is very, very important that we should hear from a bona fide representative, and not from a materialistic person who lives or he speaks, or his livelihood is earned through speaking Bhagavatam. No, that's a bogus reciters. So they can't impart the message of Bhagavatam to the listeners. So it is very, very important that one has to have a wonderful qualities of speaking Bhagavatam, and one should hear only from the bona fide representatives. And another quality, Surhrideha, he has to be friendly to all. This is another Vaishnava quality. The speaker of Bhagavatam should be friendly to all. That means like one should not be envious towards anything. If he is envious towards anyone, then he can't impart the transcendental message. Dheneshu sanukompayaha Sanukampoyam yaha, extremely compassionate. So the speaker of Bhagavatam should be extremely compassionate towards the poor, lowly, and the people in pitiable conditions. So it is very, very important that one has to be very, very compassionate towards the living entities who are suffering in this material world, going through the repeated cycle of birth and death. So the speaker of Bhagavatam has to be compassionate towards them and ready to impart the transcendental message onto them and deliver them. So that's also the wonderful quality one should have as a speaker of Bhagavatam. Bahuda Bodhan Chaturaha, and he has to be expert in Vedic scriptures like Ramayana, Mahabharata, and all the Vaishnava literatures. So without being expertise in any of the literatures, he cannot actually give the essence of any Vedic literatures, the essence of Bhagavatam, that is develop love towards the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So if the speaker is well qualified, then the listeners can realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead in every page of Srimad Bhagavatam. So Prabhupada Prabhupada actually stressed this point that one has to hear from a qualified representative, and if the speaker is pure, then the listener can also see the presence of Supreme Personality of Godhead in every page of Bhagavatam. He can develop the love towards the Supreme Personality of Godhead easily. So that is about the speaker. Now we'll here Prabhupada also says, like, one should hear with rapt attention from the real person, and then one can at once realize the presence of Lord Krishna in every page. So we all want to hear with rapt attention, but we couldn't. So we'll see certain things why not. What are the obstructions or hindrances in the hearing process? So in the same Bhagavata Mahatmya, it is described about the 4 types of superior listeners and 4 types of inferior listeners. So why can't we hear the transcendental message with rapt attention? And who can hear, who cannot hear? So that's been described. So I'll go through real quick. Pravaro chato hanso sukamena avaraha vrikha bhuranda rishibha unstraha. That's described in Bhagavad Mahatmya and Sanda Purana. So different types of listeners are being described here. Chataka bird. A Chataka bird, if you see the bird itself, so this bird only drinks the pure water only directly from the sky, not from the earth, not from anywhere else, not the contaminated water. This bird drinks the pure water during the Swati constellation directly from sky. So the listener also, we can see if we can learn from Chataka bird, the listener of Bhagavatam also has to hear Krishna Kada from a pure devotee, not from a materialistic people, only from a pure devotee. So we also have seen who is a pure devotee, what are the qualifications one should have in speaking Bhagavatam. And Hansa bird listeners. So Hansa bird, we'll see Hansa bird. Hansa, what is the quality of Hansa? The swan, so that it can separate the milk from the milk which is mixed in water which is mixed in milk. So Hamsa has this unique ability. It can extract the essence, extract the milk from the water. So these type of listeners, they can extract the essence of Krishna Kada. When the Krishna Kada is spoken, so these listeners can extract the essence of Krishna Kada and take it and practice it and can improve their life and take it to the heart. And next is Suka or parrot. The analogy given is this parrot which can learn the words very quickly and also repeat them. So again, if we relate it to a listener of a Bhagavatam or Krishna Kada, so they are those who can hear attentively. They hear attentively, they make the notes, they practice it, and they can also repeat it without adulteration. That is very important, without adulteration. One has to hear from a bona fide representative of Krishna and attentively practice it, repeat it, and without any adulteration. And we can also see Suta Goswami, as he heard from the Sukadeva Goswami attentively, and he was able to give the Srimad Bhagavatam to the sages of Naimisharanya without any adulteration. And meena or fish, so this is a unique quality of fish. So fish cannot survive without water. So fish has to be live in water. And if you see the eyes of the fish, fish tries to keep his eyes like open without any blinking, keeps his eyes open. So similarly, the listeners of Krishna Kada has to hear attentively, and they should have this eagerness to hear, and their existence and survival is only Krishna Kada. It's like they can't survive anywhere else without hearing Krishna Kada. So wherever they go, whatever they do, they want to hear Krishna Kada. So these are the wonderful listeners, and they always focus without blinking eyes, just like a fish. They'll focus and attentively hear and release what they heard. So these are the superior listeners, as described in Bhagavad Mahatmya. So one should have this hankering. So we can learn these things from Chataka bird. So one should have the hankering for Krishna Kada, and one should extract the essence or wisdom from Krishna Kada, and one should hear attentively like a parrot and also memorize it. It's very important. Hear attentively, memorize it, and repeat Krishna Kada as they heard. And also love for Krishna Kada. One should develop the aim or the ultimate purpose of hearing and listening is to develop love for Krishna. Only if you have the love for Krishna, then we can avoid this transmigration, the repeated cycle of birth and death. Not just that, the pure devotees just here to release the nectarian pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So these are the superior types of listeners. And we'll look at the inferior listeners. Inferior listeners like wolf. This is also described in a Bhagavad Mahatmya. Wolf, Buranda bird, Vrishava bull, camel. So about the wolf, these kind of listeners, like they are like a disturbance to the Kada itself. They try to argue, create nuisance, and throughout the Kada. So these are like inferior listeners. And Buranda bird. So just like a Buranda bird, so they just collect from everything, but no transformation in their hearing. And a bull, so we see the bull cannot distinguish between the sweet grapes or oil. They cannot distinguish between what they eat. So similarly, these kind of listeners, they cannot distinguish what is right, what is wrong. And camel type of listeners, camel eats when they choose a leaf, so it also eats with the thorns, and I try to release the blood. So these type of listeners basically understand the Krishna Kada in a perverted way, in a wrong way. So when they hear the Rasa Leela of Krishna or pastimes of Krishna, they understand in a incorrect way. So these are the inferior listeners. I'm not criticizing anyone. So these are the listeners that been described in Srimad Bhagavatam Mahatmya. So we looked at superior listeners, and we looked at inferior listeners, and we look at the Prabhupada next verse. One has to hear, Prabhupada says here, one has to hear this transcendental message of Srimad Bhagavatam through his ears. That is a real process of hearing. So it is very, very important that we cannot directly go and open the books of Bhagavatam and go to 10th canto and go to some Rasa Leela or any other subject matter without proper understanding of Krishna Kada. So as I think in the last class, Rajeshwari Pran Mataji has sufficiently glorified the Srimad Bhagavatam. So Bhagavatam is none other than the incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna himself, literary incarnation. We will say literary incarnation. So when the Krishna appears as when the Krishna appears in the form of a fish, he is called Matsya. And when Krishna appears in the form of boar, he is called Varaha. When Krishna appears in the form of turtle, he is called Kurma. And when Krishna appears in the form of lion, half man, he is called Narasimha. And when the same Krishna appears in the form of book, literal incarnation, he is called Bhagavatam. So this Bhagavatam is as equivalent to Krishna. And the way to take the or hear the Bhagavatam is through the ears. It's very important that one should hear. Drank the juice. It's a nectar. This nectar can be released only through ears, not through any mental concoction. And also it is described, the Bhagavatam is about, the Bhagavatam book itself is a form of Krishna, like feet of Krishna, legs of Krishna, and the belly, stomach, and the beautiful face of Krishna. So similarly, when we look at the deity form of Krishna, we'll go gradually. We start with the lotus feet of Krishna, we'll go little upwards, and we'll go all the way to see the beautiful face of Lord Krishna. So that is the right way to approach or see the God in a progressive way, starting from the lotus feet of the Lord. So similarly, Bhagavatam, if one has to hear, one has to go through the similar process, how they worship the deity. That is from the first canto of Bhagavatam. One has to hear from the first canto of Bhagavatam. Here, one has to hear from the first canto of Bhagavatam and slowly go towards the 10th canto of Bhagavatam and can relish the beautiful face of Bhagavatam and can relish the beautiful form of Bhagavatam, that is Krishna himself. And that devotee can see the presence of Krishna in every page of Bhagavatam. So that is a real process of receiving Bhagavatam. So we looked at speakers of Bhagavatam, listeners of Bhagavatam, what are the qualifications one to have as a speaker and how one should hear. And we look at importance of hearing Bhagavatam. So that is described in the Bhagavatam itself from verse 17 to verse 21. That is, Shunmatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shavana Kirtanaha Hridayantavsti Abhadrani Vidinoti Suhrit Satam Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shlokir Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Tata Rajastamo Bhava Kamalo Baschayetachar Anavidham Sitam Satve Prasidati Evam Prasanna Manaso Bhagavat Bhakti Yogataha Bhagavat Tattva Vijnanam Mukta Sangaya Sejat Mukha Sangaya Tejat Jayate Vidyate Hridayas Grantis Chidyate Sarva Samshayaha Kshiyante Chasya Karmani Drishta Eva Evatmanashware. So if you look at the verses 17 to 21, the importance of Srimad Bhagavatam is been mentioned. So how when one hears the Bhagavatam, the transformation happens. So one has to hear about Krishna from Krishna. Shrunvate Satatam Krishna. One has to hear about Krishna from Krishna. So Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita, the transcendental message has spoken by him, evam parampara pratam. And how he hear? From a bona fide representative of Krishna, who can relish the Krishna Kada by speaking, who can rejoice the Krishna Kada by speaking Krishna, and also puts everyone in ecstasy just by speaking Krishna Kada. So that Krishna also said that in 10:10, Machitta Madgata Prana Bhojayanta Parasparam Kadayantascha Manityam Tushyanti Charamanticha. My devotees, they converse about me and they relish the nectarian pastimes of me. So that is a process one has to hear from a bona fide representative and relish the nectar of Krishna Kada. So when one hears about Krishna from Krishna, his heart is purified. Okay, Krishna is present in the heart as a super soul, as Paramatma, and he can purify our consciousness or contamination which we have accumulated in our hearts. So he also says in 10:11, Nasasyami Atma Bhavastu Jnana Deepena Bhashvata. So I am being present in the heart. So with the torchlight, I can dissipate the darkness of ignorance. Krishna himself says that in Bhagavad Gita 10:11. So when one hears one hears Krishna, about Krishna, from Krishna, bona fide representative of Krishna, his heart is become purified, his heart will be purified, and he develops transcendental knowledge. That's a very, very important. One has to hear as it is, contemplate, and one develops transcendental knowledge. When one develops transcendental knowledge, then his devotional service is fixed. Devotional service is fixed. And he becomes free from the modes of passion and ignorance. So our devotional service, if your devotional service has to be pure, one has to be fixed in devotional service. Then when we practice devotional service, we'll be naturally be freed from the passion and ignorance. As we all know, living entity itself is pure, Satchitananda, but in association of matter, it gets contaminated over the course of time and goes through the repeated cycle of birth and death, and accumulates so much sin and so much sinful activities, so much sinful desires, and develops passion and ignorance that will be freed when from gradually hears from their bona fide representative. And through the transformation process, one becomes enlivened by the devotional service, and by which the hard knot which is in our hearts gets cut. Krishna also says, like, he removes the hard knot, cleanses the heart. When the heart is cleansed, when the hard knots are removed, when we are free from the modes of passion and ignorance, we later on come to the mode of goodness, pure goodness, and by which we can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead as it is. So as we can see here, when we hear as it is with rapt attention, we can understand Krishna as it is. And another important thing is given in the verse. Prabhupada also says, no one can give rapt attention who is not pure in mind. No one can be pure in mind who is not pure in action. No one can be pure in action who is not pure in eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating. So the Krishna Kada itself is so transcendental that can transform, but there are some blockers, there are some hindrances which will not let us hear attentively, or will stop us from seeing Krishna in Bhagavatam. So we look at it as Prabhupada said. So this is a process. So who can hear with rapt attention? So left side, if you see, these are all like the materialistic life, the impure consciousness, and the right side is a spiritual life with the pure consciousness. So I'll go through each one by one. So Prabhupada starts with this statement. It's a wonderful statement. So one has to be pure in eating, sleeping, mating, defending. So what it is? Eating, sleeping, mating, defending. So those are the prime necessities or prime activities of every living entity. Take it human or animals or species, any species of the life, they do these four things. This is a seed principle: eating, sleeping, mating, defending. Okay, every living entity does. So just by doing, it will binds the living entities, especially humans. Even by eating, even by everyday eating, even by taking rest, sleeping, or mating, defending, we are creating more and more karmas. And we are putting ourselves into the repeated cycle of birth and the transmigration process, because the activities itself are impure. So one has to purify the eating, sleeping, mating, defending. And the another biggest blockers about this materialistic life, who are impure, those are like sense gratificatory actions. So when their existence, like eating, sleeping, mating, defending, is impure, their consciousness will be impure, their bodily actions will be impure, and they'll do sense gratificatory actions, and by which their mind also will be impure. So that is a subtle body blockers that will not let them hear attentively the Krishna Kada. So impure mind hankers for sense gratification, wants to hear tasty things, want to hear the unnecessary mundane topics. And preconception, other biggest bloggers about the preconception about the speaker. So one may have the preconception about the speaker, oh, this is not a great speaker, I don't hear from him, I know what he knows, how he knows. These are kind of impurities of the subtle body, which makes the mind inattentive. And these kind of listeners, they cannot hear the Srimad Bhagavatam with rapt attention. So Prabhupada says, who can hear? So one has to have pure, one has to be pure in eating, sleeping, mating, defending. One has to do pure actions. One has to be pure in mind. One has to only then, when the mind is pure, then they can hear the Krishna Kada with rapt attention. So we'll look at one by one. So eating, sleeping, mating, defending are the prime necessities in our spiritual life. So how to purify our eating, sleeping, mating, defending? So we'll purify by when we live, when our living is for Krishna. If Krishna says, any activity you do in conscious of me for my pleasure, then you'll be relieved from this repeated cycle of birth and death. So when you do the yajnadart karma, when our activities like eating for the sake of God, we eat for the sake of God, for the pleasure of God. We sleep for the sake of God, for the pleasure of God. Mating, defending, everything, whatever we do for the sake of God, for the pleasure of God. So that way, we'll not bind ourselves into the repeated cycle of birth and death. This is very, very important. One has to practice yajnardat karma, doing what are the activities, basic necessity activities for the pleasure of Krishna, and purify our existence. So when our existence is pure, then our actions will be pure. So how our actions will be pure? So we'll do devotional service in pure consciousness when we practice devotional service. When our existence is pure, when we are eating prasadam, Krishna prasadam, and practicing devotional services regulative way, and with sadhana bhakti process, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. It may be difficult in the beginning, but by sincere practice, we can come into the pure actions, or our existence will be pure, our actions will be pure. So when our existence is pure, our actions is pure, our mind is also pure, our mind becomes pure. So Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita 12:8, Mayi eva manadasva, fix your mind upon me. That is a smaranatmika bhakti. And also says, Mayi buddhim niveshaya, you fix your intelligence also upon me. Not just mind, also fix your intelligence upon me. Mananatmika bhakti. Then he says, Niveshai mayi nivasisyasi mayi eva atha urdham na samshayaha. You will learn me, you'll come to me, you'll be absorbed in me. When you fix your mind upon me, when you fix your intelligence upon me, then you'll become pure. So here we can say here, as Prabhupada said, when our existence is pure, our action is pure. When our eating, sleeping, mating, defending is pure, our actions are pure, our mind will be pure. When we fix our mind in Krishna, and when I say mind, intelligence, and false ego, make it true ego, and our mind is pure, then we can hear attentively from Krishna. And we will be absorbed in Krishna Kada. So Krishna Kada is so nectarian, Nama, Rupa, Guna, Leela. So there will be no hindrances. We will live in Krishna as Krishna assured in this verse 12:18. But and also Prabhupada says, Prabhupada also says, but one has to hear, but somehow or other, if someone hears with rapt attention from the right person, at the very beginning can assuredly see Lord Krishna in every pages of Bhagavatam. So Prabhupada giving another assurance that if one somehow or other, being the sadhana bhakti, hears with rapt attention from a right person, he can at once see the presence of Krishna in every page of Bhagavatam. I think I have time. So Lord Kapila, so this is what Lord Kapila says in his he was instructing to Devavati, Mother Devavati. We have completed this verse recently. So the pure devotional service, the unadulterated pure devotional service is exhibited when our mind is attracted towards the transcendental message of Krishna. When our mind, when our hearing process is naturally attracted towards the Supreme Personality of Krishna's Nama, Rupa, Guna, like chanting the holy names of the Lord, Krishna Kada, hearing the pastimes of the Lord, Guna, Leela, everything, when our heart and mind is naturally attracted toward the Lord, we are in the pure devotional service. So the pure devotee's mind is naturally attracted towards the Nama, Rupa, Guna, Leela of the God who is sitting in the heart of everyone. And just as like he gives analogies, just as like Ganga goes naturally into the ocean, naturally the stream, the devotion of a pure devotee, he'll be in ecstasy. He'll naturally, without any interruption, he can hear with rapt attention, and he'll be absorbed in Krishna Kada. So that is the thing. So it is very important that one has to hear attentively. Just as like if you pour the oil into the container, oil goes straight into the container, it will not split here and there. So Taila Dharavat. So it's very important that one has to hear attentively without any interruption, without any mind blockers, mind interruptions. So when our sadhana practice is pure, our mind will be pure, and we can hear attentively, and we can relish Krishna Kada. So stages of hearing, I'll try to quickly complete. So stages of hearing. So Upanishad says that there are different stages of hearing process, Shravana, Manana, and Nidhyasana. So when one hears, one also has to contemplate, not just hearing from a bona fide representative, one also has to contemplate on it. Not just contemplate on it, one has to intensify their contemplation and being absorbed. So when, as the Prabhupada also says, when our activities are pure, when our actions are pure, when our mind is pure, we will be absorbed, we'll hear with rapt attention. So that is, we'll be absorbed in Krishna Kada. So as you can see, Suta Goswami, Sukadeva Goswami, when he was narrating, many personalities, great personalities have appeared. Veda Vyasa himself have appeared, and many rishis, and Lord himself was present when Sukadeva Goswami was speaking Bhagavatam. So it's very important that one has to hear attentively and also hear, contemplate, and intensify their hearing process, contemplation process, and becoming absorbed in Krishna Kada and develop pure love of Krishna. And Prahlad also says in the 9 process of devotional service, Shavanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. So one has to hear and also chant. When they chant, whatever they hear, they chant, and also get absorbed, Vishnu Smaranam, continuously contemplate and get themselves absorbed. And Bhakti Vinod Thakur also says in Jaiva Dharma, so that is the Shravana Dasha. So that is the initial stage of hearing when one hears. So he also gives different stages of hearing. That is Krama Hina Shravana Dasha and Krama Shuddha Shravana Dasha. That is like in initial stages, like there will be irregular hearing from here and there. So it is very important that systematic hearing, this hearing from a systematic way. Not directly going into the 10th canto, 10th canto of Bhagavatam, one has to hear from the first canto and gradually go towards the 10th canto. That is a systematic hearing from a bona fide representative as it is, who can speak the message of Krishna as it is. So irregular hearing wouldn't help us to hear or come to the stage of absorbed hearing. That is the Prabhupada says hearing with rapt attention. We cannot come to that stage if we hear irregularly, irregular times or irregular way. So one has to hear systematic way. Systematic hearing is very important in the process of sadhana bhakti or develop love towards the God. And Jaiva Dharma, Bhaktivinoda Thakur also says, Varanadasha, acceptance stage. When one hears, we accept it and take it to the heart, and we start remembering. And and we'll be in ecstasy. When we hear from a bona fide representative, we can hear with rapt attention, will be ecstasy, just as like Suta Goswami heard it from Sukadeva Goswami, and Parishit Maharaj also was in ecstasy, and we will go into that. And that is the highest stage, and also one can attain the Prema Sampati Dasha. So that is the highest stage of hearing, highest stage of developing bhakti towards the Lord, developing the Prema Bhakti towards the Lord. So that starts with hearing and contemplating and intensify our hearing. So transformation through hearing, I'll try to quickly cover in 2 minutes. So we can see, as we have been reading Srimad Bhagavatam, evening in the 6:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. So we covered many great personalities, who they have heard and transformed themselves. So we can see Prahlad Maharaj, he was in the womb of his mother. His mother was not attentive, but he was attentive. He was able to take the message as it is from Narada Muni. He take it to the heart, and he himself exemplified as a pure devotee, and all the transcendental qualities were naturally manifested in Prahlad Maharaj. It started with the process of hearing from Narada Muni, from his spiritual master. And Narada Muni to Vyasadeva, Narada Muni also says he also has heard from the sages, and he also gives the message to Vyasadeva. And Parishit Maharaj himself, so he was fasting and he heard from Sukadeva Goswami for straight 7 days, and he's transformed himself. And Magadha Devahati from Lord Kapila, she heard attentively and she also transformed. And Dhruva Maharaj from Narada Muni and Swayambhava Manu, and Prithu Maharaj from Kumaras, Prachina Bhari, Prithu Maharaj from Kumaras, Prachina Bhari from Narada Muni. So Prachina Bhari was too much involved in materialistic karmakhandic activities. So by the message, by hearing from Narada Muni, he was able to transform. And Prachetas, hearing Rudra Gita from Lord Shiva, and the sages of Naimisharanya, hearing from Suta Goswami. And also finally, Srila Prabhupada himself, hearing attentively from spiritual master, he was able to spread the Krishna consciousness and also give the wonderful literatures to all of us. And many more. So it's very important that, I'm also close to done, I'm almost done. So it's very important that one has to hear attentively in a systematic way from a bona fide representative with rapt attention. So by which we can see Krishna, presence of Krishna in every page of Bhagavatam, and we can realize Krishna, will be absorbed in Krishna, and we can develop pure love of Krishna, and we can easily go back to Godhead, back to home. So these are the topics I spoke today. Almost done here. So I spoke about the context, about Suta Goswami, and qualifications of Suta Goswami, and qualifications of a speaker in general, and qualifications of a listener, how one has to hear, the blockers over the problems in the hearing process, the different types of listeners, we looked at that. And also I spoke about how one has to hear with rapt attention. So with purity in actions, purity in bodily actions, purity in mind, purity in consciousness, and by which we can purify ourselves, and the importance of hearing Bhagavatam from the Bhagavatam itself. And we'll also look at the transformation through the hearing. So this is the final concluding message. So when we hear attentively, as Prabhupada says, we can see the presence of Krishna in every page of Bhagavatam. So with that, I'll conclude here. Sorry, I took almost 1 hour, I guess. So Hare Krishna devotees, please forgive me if I had committed any offenses or misrepresented or misspoke anything. I'm also myself a poor listener. I'm struggling. Please forgive me if I had committed any offenses, and we can open up for any discussions. Sorry for being late. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Ravi Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
So, very important topic, Prabhu, today, because the the fundamental thing when we start with devotional service is actually hearing. So our process actually starts by this hearing process. From then actually one will advance or next to the spiritual life. So thank you for compiling so much information about the importance of hearing. Like you said, I am also very poor hearer. So I know why I'm not able to hear with rapt attention, especially the slide you showed, that because our impure activities and impure actions and there's no purity in the mind. So that's why we are not able to hear with rapt attention. So I can correlate with myself so much. So thank you very much. I don't have any question, but that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Like Rajajana Prabhu said, it was a wonderful, beautiful presentation, Prabhu. Thank you for stressing the importance of hearing and providing references on improper and proper hearing. As both of you said, I'm even more a poor listener, and at least I have pointers in how one should hear from your messages, from Prabhupada's message, and how you had elaborated. Thank you, Prabhu. Really appreciate all the hard work you put in this, and really wonderful messages, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.